just because the Alchemist is really fun. Just because of how fast his health bar drops after you load him up. That's why it's so much fun. It's so fast. It's actually pretty simple the way it works. First of all, what's really helping is I have a phase cast Anointed Alchemist. So we're getting that flat 250% bonus just right out the gate. So that's really important. The other two items that are really important is one is the Transformer. And the reason you need this is because shooting the Alchemist does shock damage to yourself, and you can actually kill yourself if you're not wearing this while using the gun. This is the best Transformer I have, so with bonus cryo damage, which works. Ideally, you'd have Corrosive or Incendiary, and then on your grenade, you would have the other. So I have Incendiary and Cryo. Incendiary and Corrosive would be a little bit better. Obviously, a driver with an elemental projector, since we're phase casting. And then the other thing that's important is our Unforgiven, because after we shoot our Alchemist and load up Grave Ward, we could either wait the 10 seconds for them to detonate, or we can weapon swap to our Unforgiven, and we get that nice juicy 432% crit damage on all of the shots. So that's how it's going so fast, is because we're swapping to the Unforgiven for the crit damage. But obviously, best in slot Alchemist, plus our Anointed Shield and our Anointed Grenade, Elemental Projector giving us another 90%, and then of course the Spiritual Driver giving us more damage for moving. So yeah, that's how that works. Alright, so skill tree for bossing on Amara. So this is specifically for like single target boss fights like Grave Ward or Agonizer. Anything where there's not a lot of ads around and it's just, you and the boss. So starting in the red tree, we don't go too far down it because a lot of the things in the red tree are specifically built towards mobbing. So all we really focus on is Anima and Tempest. Tempest almost every single build with Amara you want at least Tempest, because you're getting 30% elemental damage and pretty much every gun you're going to use is elemental. So you always want that, and in order to get down to that, Anima is usually your best choice. Status effect damage and duration are actually both really useful. I think people a lot of the time underestimate how much damage status effects do, and it's actually really strong. So that's all I do in red tree. I suppose you could put 3 points in here if you need accuracy or handling, but those don't really help your damage, so I would stick with 5 and 5 here. And also that allows you to switch to Incendiary for your skill tree. So green tree, pretty much built for the Spiritual Driver class mod. So I start with 3 in personal space. Depending on the boss fight, you might not benefit a lot from this. Like for Grave Ward, for instance, you're probably not going to get a lot of this. But if you're in a different fight where you're a lot closer to the boss, that 36% can actually do a lot for you. So I put 3 here. I have 2 in here and then 2 from the class mod. You could do max health, but I find that Clarity can be a little bit more useful to give you some more sustain. But that's not totally important. You could definitely put 2 in Root to Rise instead of Clarity. It's not really important. You just need 2 more points to get down to the next tree. Absolutely 5 in Arm Steel. 20% more splash damage is nice. 3 in Samsara and 3 in Mindfulness. Obviously, Mindfulness helps us with our Spiritual Driver. The faster we move, the more damage we do. So we've got 3 from a class mod, and I put 3 more points in it. So we got a lot of movement speed and a lot of shield regeneration delay. So, but really just care about the movement speed. 3 in Samsara. Samsara is such a good skill. We get extra gun damage, obviously, from this. For single target boss fights, it's not a whole lot of damage, but everything counts. So I'd rather put the 3 points here than anywhere else because it's giving us extra damage. So the blue tree is a bit more important as far as damage goes. A lot of the points we put in here are just so that we can get lower in the tree to do more damage. So I put 3 in fast hands. The reload speed and the weapon swap speed can actually be really useful in boss fights. And I throw 4 in violent tapestry. Sometimes it can be a bit difficult to proc a lot of this in boss fights. But again, we need to put in points to get lower in the tree. So I put 3 in Transcend. This one, I think, is again another one of those no-brainers. The crit damage is 27% is actually a lot of damage. And the accuracy is pretty helpful too. I put 5 points in Restless. And this is especially helpful if you're using either Phase Slam or Phase Cast. And you don't kill the boss in like one clip. Then you can get your action skill up a bit quicker so that you can put out some more damage just a bit faster. These 5 points aren't necessary, especially if you are like one clipping the boss. You could alternatively put these 5 points somewhere else, but it's hard to find, you know, where you would put it that would be just as useful. I mean, I guess reload speed is good to have too, so you could put it in Alacrity, I suppose. I guess you could even put it in Do Harm, but this one's a kill skill, so for bossing, I don't know. So maybe Alacrity if you don't need the action skill cooldown. And then once we're down to here, this is where we get the extra damage. So first one is Laid Bare. The 25% damage increase by anything affected by our action skill. So for bossing, that's always going to happen, especially if you're using Phase Cast. So that's another 25% damage. And then Wrath is even better. It's a base 20% gun damage increase, plus another 20% after we use our action skill. So we're pretty much having a 40% buff from this at all times. So these two are the big heavy hitters for damage. I throw 1 point in From Rest for the extra fire rate and charge speed. This is especially useful if you're using Molly-Won guns, because you get both the fire rate and the charge speed bonus from it. And there's a lot of really good Molly-Won SMGs that are in the game, like the Cutsman, like Kibsworth. So this 1 point, I guess, is a bit of a flex, because you could put it in Remnant. The only thing about Remnant is that if it's a single target boss fight, you're not really ever going to benefit from this, because you have to kill something to benefit from this. So I put it in From Rest. I suppose you could put it necessarily in Steady Hands for some extra accuracy and handling. It's a bit of a flex, but I've found it works best in From Rest for me. And as far as the different augments we have, so obviously the action skill element's going to depend on the boss you're fighting. For Grave Ward, you'd want Incendiary. For Agonizer, you'd want, Corrosive. And then if you're fighting a Shock boss, then you'd switch to Shock. Other than that, the other one doesn't really matter. I have a Lure on, and I guess it's just for the extra 2.5 second duration that it gives me. And so the way it kind of works with Samsara is that anytime we do damage with the action skill, we get a stack of Samsara, right? And if we just hit them once, right, with either Phase Slam or with Phase Cast, we're only going to proc this one time. But if we have this extra 2.5 seconds, our Phase Cast essentially leaves a dot on the enemy that lasts 2.5 seconds. So the Samsara procs an additional 2 times. So we're getting more stacks of Samsara by using that augment as opposed to something else. So I haven't found anything else that really works. You could use Soul Sap if you need some extra sustain in the fight, but again, this is geared towards like deleting bosses, so you probably won't need this. So I've found that Allure works best for this setup. So that's the skill tree. Alright, so we'll start with the Cutsman. Obviously, we'll always phase cast first. Unload our clip. Swap to another gun. Make sure we have enough damage, and there it is. Now I've got a decent Lyuda. Since it's a Grave Ward fight, obviously you want an incendiary one. So I have 100% on action skill end. I don't think you need that. And I don't even know if I'm getting this bonus since, you know, we're using our action skill while we have the Cutsman out. So we might not even be getting that. So as long as you just have a fire, Lyuda, or just anything high damage, it'll work there. Oh, that was our favorite grenade, wasn't it? Alright. It was. Okay, so this time we'll use our Alchemist. Again, always phase cast first to get our damage proc. Load this guy up with as many shots as we can, and then we'll swap. And he's deleted. And there it is. And again, that's not exclusive to the Alchemist. There's a lot of guns that you can do that with. Anything that has slow-moving projectiles or stickies, you can do that with. So stuff like a Cutsman or a Linoge, the Red Line. There's a lot of options you have, so it doesn't have to be an Alchemist. You kind of got to use whatever you're given from RNGesus.